Alright guys, today we'll be taking a look at a post that was on the Clash Royale Reddit this month captioned "Why Evolutions Have Been Clash Royale's Biggest Mistake Effort Post." Now this is a pretty long post, but basically guys, he goes in depth. It's really interesting. He explains all the reasons why evolutions are really bad for the game, but he also gives some ways that Clash Royale could eventually fix it. So let's get into it, because as you guys know, recently evolutions have been a hot topic inside of the game, and most people have not been a huge fan of them. So he starts it off saying evolutions have completely broken the game and will continue to do so every season. This deep analysis is pretty much everything about card evolution, should give a good insight on how critical the situation is. Even if you believe evolutions are a great or decent addition, please give this a shot, as you might get something out of it. So he starts off stating they have a faulty core feature, the cycle aspect of them. Evolutions, as we know, are gifts given to the cards that overpower them once your cycle said card 1, 2, or 3 times. At first, this seemed like a balanced concept due to how natural cycling cards is in the game, but the sole power of evolve cards has proved us wrong. These evolve cards almost always ensure value whenever they are placed, independently of their costs. In fact, they give too much value that is usually too hard to deal with if the opposing side lacks a clear counter or the evolution itself is terribly misplayed. All this had led players to follow the train of thought of spamming as many evolutions as possible. Why such importance to an already popular way of playing the game? Fast cycling is a strategy that many players already used in their daily basis of Clash Royale, but now Supercell has practically forced every player to use it for maximum benefit. It is true evolutions can be played without such frenetic cycling, but the fact that this strategy is valid and strong for any evolution with mildly offensive capabilities nullify this statement. I get Supercell loves offensive gameplay rather than defensive, but going to such an extreme to force the most frenzied type of playing is ridiculous. Champions also boosted fast cycling strategies and were a forced inclusion in any competitive deck. Yes and no. Champions did benefit decks that would ideally have a 3-card cycle rather than 4, but they never single-handedly carry any deck with their inclusion if you just cycled as fast as you could. Champions are 4 to 5 elixir cost cards, which cannot be placed anywhere and any time to start your now faster cycles. It is true champions ended up being everywhere in competitive play, but at least they required quite a lot of strategy. Not only are they unique cards that can't coexist with copies of itself on the battlefield, which boosted your cycles, but they also had creative and never seen before abilities that would require good use to be effective. What's most important, their inclusion did not overly benefit any kind of deck to the extent of only making a certain type usable. It is also worth noting decks without champions are also fun and can be mildly competitive in some portions of the game. This also means facing a champion does not mean you lost, but rather something similar to a 1-level difference when facing it. You can certainly take a deck with a champion down with a non-champion deck. That is very true. So what is one of the many issues with evolutions when compared to champions? Easy answer. Everything that champions did right, evolutions did wrong. Evolutions single-handedly carry decks with their sole inclusion, even if you don't cycle as fast as you can. Evolutions, like champions, are everywhere in competitive play, but they do not purport nearly as much strategy, nor they are creative for the most part. Evolutions don't require good use to be effective. Evolutions have overly benefited fast cycle decks in comparison to Beatdown. That's true because evolutions, you don't really see them inside of Electro Giant or Golem, for example. They're in Hog, Mortar, and fast cycle decks like that. Decks without evolutions can be fun and somewhat competitive as long as you're not going up against an evolution. Facing evolution without the opposing side having one is similar to a 3-level difference interaction and usually very tough to beat. You need the opponent to misplay and you need to play perfectly. I agree with the points he said so far. I do think, yeah, big difference between champions and evolutions. At least the champions added to the game were new cards and creative. Their ability is something that requires skill because you have to get that timing down and you can't just do it anytime you want because it does use elixir, whereas the evolutions, there's no additional elixir required to use that evolution, so you can just abuse them as much as you want and they're always going to benefit you no matter what, which is different than champions. And of course, now we get into the complete lack of balance in 100% of the card evolutions. It's simply not possible that the Clash Royale team team saw any of the evolutions we have in the game and decided it would be somewhat balanced. Maybe excluding barbarians. Well, now we know the barbarians are extremely broken, and they definitely will be because they didn't get nerfed in the last balance. But anyway, he was saying they're hard to break on defense. I cannot believe they honestly thought about the consequences. They never thought about the consequences of it apart from the obvious economic benefit. Yep. Barbarians that survive a fireball and deal with pretty much anything in the ground lane. 1 elixir skeletons that are most effective defensive troop as long as the opponent has no spell, and they can also 3 crown on their own. Yeah, it's crazy. Royal giant that completely shuts down anything that could be 4 counter it. Skeleton army, goblins, 1 cost skeletons, normal barbarians, except for a few exceptions like P.E.K.K.A. Furthermore, can destroy troops nearby its target, and it has a health boost. Yeah, it had that 20% health boost. A firecracker not only survives arrows but spawns small poisons and has a stronger setback while shooting. I wish I was making all this up. Mortar that fires at God's speed, has more health, can take down a tower, spawns a goblin that, if left alone, stabs twice. Never before have I seen anything similar in Clash Royale. Only supercards are on this level of madness. However, I think we should consider ourselves lucky that at least they are locked behind a random game mode. On a serious note, the overpowered level of supercards can be contested by evolutions, and I am really hoping no supercard ability is turned into evolutions. Since when can 1 elixir cards 3 crown? Why can a 1 elixir card take down any non-flying card in the game? I honestly don't think the argument any spell can stop the skeletons is valid. Clash Royale should not have such silver bullet cards. A decent parallelism of this situation is the Electro Giant versus a deck without building is just 10 times worse. The skeleton evolutions basically take away quite a chunk of strategy from the game. You require a spell that is more expensive than 1 elixir and ideally is a 2 or 3 cost, because if not, you are doomed with such negative elixir trades. Now, the one thing I'll say is we did find out the evolved skeletons did happen to be the worst evolution in the game, but with that being said, just because they're the worst evolution in the game doesn't mean they're bad. I want to make sure to emphasize that. Why do we have win conditions with evolutions? Evolutions are an undeniable buff, not only to statistics, but to mention interaction changes. So gifting win conditions with them strongly underpower any other win conditions. Why can Royal Giant now shrug off 80% of what would take him down before? Why can Mortar, 4 elixir card, be so versatile at both defending and attacking whilst being able to take down a tower alone? The same applies to support cards, just not as noticeable due to their supposed incapability to take over the game. For example, more or less we could all agree Executioner has always been the better Wizard, so if Wizard had an evolution, Executioner would immediately be replaced by Wizard in many scenarios. Yep, I agree, I could see that happening for sure. Furthermore, as of now, we could affirm Firecracker has taken over both of their roles apart from many others due to how effectively she can deal with the Wizard and the Executioner. Yeah, the Firecracker's a support card, but she's so broken as an evolution, she even turned into a win condition. Complete lack of balance every season for pay-to-wins. I am very aware Supercell has intentionally released these card evolutions so stupidly broken to get people to buy them. However, absolutely all of the cards we have seen are over-the-top broken as in never-seen magnitude. What makes this much, much worse is the fact we have to put up with every single season, mainly because pay-to-wins will have access to a card that can take over the game by itself, and we have no experience dealing with it. In other words, it's like the release of a newly overpowered card, only that we won't have such an easy access nor experience against it at all. The fact that every card evolution we have seen has the potential to destroy the meta further supports how consistent Supercell will enable the card to mop the floor with free-to-play players. The worst possible way of controlling the meta. Apart from the blatant monetary intent, this also throws in a message from Supercell that clearly states since we cannot release decent balance changes, we will now handpick which cards will take over. The player base knows it has to be impossibly hard to balance a game with so many cards, but this terrible game balancing feature disguised a revolutionary game mechanic is not the way to go. You have the community for a reason. You have the top players, you have mid-ladder players, you have the content creators, you have the casuals. We can help you, and we are more than willing to do so. He says, card evolution, a concept destined to fail. Put yourself in the following scenario. If you had all evolutions of 100 plus cards in the game, which one would you take in, for example, the 2.6 deck? Would you use the evolution of a random support card or the win condition one, aka the Hog Rider? Unless one evolution was noticeably more broken or turned into a strong win condition, you'd almost always prefer the OG win condition. In other words, card evolution is a game feature that will for sure collapse in the future due to strong preference for win conditions, and I completely agree with him there. I feel like things are just going to get even weirder when more evolutions are added to the game, because when we have like 10 or 20 evolutions, for example, and a lot of them are support cards, I feel like people are mostly just going to use the ones that are win conditions. For example, the evolved barbarians are very good inside of lava, but I have a feeling when the lava gets involved, no one's going to use the evolved barbarians inside of lava. People are going to use the lava, if you get what I'm saying. Can card evolution as a feature be fixed? So this is what we're all waiting for. Is this a concept that can actually be good? So let's see what he has to say. Yes and no. What should be done like every other single chain, such as level 15, season shop, and gold and diamond pass? Reverse everything prior to a certain point in the game where nothing was so poorly designed. Unfortunately, I don't see that happening, but that would be amazing if they did reverse level 15 especially. Evolutions, due to the effort put into them, could be safely transformed or transferred into the super card game mode, or simply create a new event game mode only for evolutions. Of course, all this should come with an according compensation for the investment in shards. This would obviously set back Supercell's expected monetary gain, but would regain what I consider most important, the community's confidence. Supercell's data might suggest we Reddit, Discord community are a tiny portion of the community, but those active in social media are the ones who essentially take the lead on expressing what the game looks like from the outside. And as of now, us, the tiny part of the Clash Royale player base, have managed to put the focus on Supercell's consistent poor decision making. Do we really deserve to be ignored by the team that made a game we all once loved? So yeah, guys, that was a very interesting post. It's always nice to look at what a casual player's perspective is on the state of the game, obviously for a big topic like evolution. So that's kind of what a casual player's opinion is, and I feel like a lot of other casual players share the same opinion as him. I think that evolutions are pretty bad for the majority of players, and unfortunately, I don't see them stopping, doing what they're doing, because they're earning a lot of money off these evolutions, like the night one that just came out, and I feel like that's their plan. They're going to keep every month just releasing a new broken evolution, and I feel like they don't have any intent to not make them as broken as they are, but hopefully, guys, they start making some changes soon. Anyways, what do you guys think about this guy's post?